Well, welcome, Heather. I'm so excited to bring you onto the podcast today, fellow FDN. And so I know you have your own experience dealing with Lyme and mold toxicity. So let's go ahead and start there. Why don't you share with everyone a little bit of your story, and then we'll get into our conversation today.
Awesome. Thanks, Erica. FDN in the house.
Yay!
Yeah, so geez, I am Heather Gray, the Lyme Boss, and I was undiagnosed Lyme disease for over 28 years, mold toxicity, three autoimmune diseases, a couple stints in the psych ward for suicide attempts. Was just a hot little mess, cavitations, heavy metals, parasites, all the things, right? And that's how I ended up getting into FDN, is because after being diagnosed with Lyme, I didn't know any better and went the traditional medical route, who I thought they were going to kill me. I mean, because if you think about it, you've got a person who has been sick for decades. I was constipated. I wasn't sleeping at night. My diet was crap. And none of the doctors were asking me about any of those things. They were just throwing napalm at the Lyme disease, right? We've got this weird notion that when we get a disease, here's the pill for it, right? When we get a disease, here's the treatment for it. If we get cancer, you do chemo and radiation, and they kind of treat Lyme the same way. So I got Lyme, I do antibiotics. So that's what they did. And I seriously thought they were trying to kill me. I thought I was going to die. And that's when I heard Reed Davis, the founder of FDN, speak on a podcast. So thank God for podcasts, right? Literally saved my life. And he started talking about you need to open up detox pathways. You need to support hormones. And is your gut working? And are you sleeping at night? And are, you pooping daily? And I was like, I was a hairstylist at the time. And intuitively, this made sense to me. I was like, holy cow, this is it. This is what I need to do to help get myself better. Of course, that wasn't the happy ending that I thought it was going to be. It still takes years, right? Even once you start getting those answers done, but peeling back the layers of the onion, you got to start somewhere. And now I'm on the other side. I've put Lyme in remission. I've detoxed mold. I had cavitation surgery. I reversed 2 out of 3 of my autoimmune diseases. I've lost over 100 pounds. No more suicidal thoughts, no more pain. I sleep at night and I poop regularly. So now that's what I do in my practice, is help others,
Yeah.
live the same type of lifestyle that I know is possible. Like too many of us have just kind of, even though we say in FDN often that even though a symptom may be common, it is never normal, right? It's always your body's
Yeah,
checking
absolutely.
in, like coming on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I try to connect the dots for people and then help to see that they can live a life with energy and no brain fog and less pain and a gut that works and all the things.
Yeah, absolutely. And Heather, obviously it's horrible to think all the things that you've been through, but I also know the work that you're doing now. And I know that we can always look back. I kind of feel the same with all of my health experiences. It's like, okay, well, it wasn't for nothing because both of us are true, living, breathing people that we've gone through a lot of health things, and you can come out the other side, and you've had so many things that you just mentioned. So oh gosh, there's so many things I want to talk about. I'm like, okay, we'll pause on the symptoms and things. You mentioned some, but the first thing I want to talk about, because where does Lyme come from, right? Ticks are the most common. I know we can get Lyme from some other things, but the first piece I really want to talk about for people is tick awareness, I guess, to really start to understand, like, what can we do to help prevent tick bites? What do we do if we get a tick bite? There's the whole myth of like, oh, if it's only been attached for less than 24 hours, there's zero concern. Or, oh, you got a tick bite, we should run to the doctor and get an antibiotic. Like, there's so many extremes out there. So, can you help to kind of clarify from your perspective, what do you teach? With all of that.
Yeah, great questions. Prevention is always your first road to mastery, right? And actually, I think prevention starts with what's your immune system like and what's your gut like and how everything else is like. Because whether it's Lyme disease or COVID or the next big bad that's coming down the pike, which folks, there's more coming, right? This, we didn't see the end of it with COVID. So prevention is the whole like terrain theory, right? Let's boost your own immune system, start detoxifying, making sure your nervous system is chilled out and you're out of fight or flight. Start setting yourself up for success now. So even if you did get bit by a tick, right, your chances of actually getting Lyme disease, if it has it, goes way, way down. Because if you think about it, not everybody that gets bit by a tick gets Lyme disease. And a lot of it has to do with a person's immune system and how their body's working. So that would be step number one, right?
Yeah,
Number
I
two,
love that.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Number two would be, when you're out, make sure that when you're in grassy areas to, socks, pants, tennis shoes, I love TikTok Naturals. It's a phenomenal spray that's a lot of, essential oils that have been proven to work. Like they've got a lot of research behind their stuff and it's not toxic like the DEET and the other crap that's out there. So I really love using that. And then tick checks when you come in, you can actually put your clothes in the dryer. They talk about if you put your clothes in the dryer when you first come home after you're out in this stuff for like an hour, that will actually help kill anything that might be on your clothes so that you're not dragging them through your house. So those are some kind of prevention methods. The other one would be if you do find a tick on you, make sure to remove it and send it to a place like Tickology, which is really awesome. It's a lab that's actually just next, 10 miles away from where I live. And they have a quick turnaround. So that way, instead of, I got bit by a tick, I should run out and get antibiotics, because every round of antibiotics you take increases your risk for autoimmune disease, lowering your inflammation, lowering your immune system. So antibiotics come with their own set of issues. So I would send that tick in to have it tested first to see if you need to. And then obviously if it comes back positive, then yes, go visit your doctor, get on some doxycycline. But they even make some great herb formulas that if you take right off the bat for a month or two, can work almost just as well as antibiotics without a lot of the damage to the gut and the inflammation that traditional antibiotics cause.
Absolutely. I love herbals. And as someone who got a tick bite last summer, and I stalled and stalled going on doxycycline because I was like, I am striving so hard to not go on antibiotics again because I was on so many, as a child and all of that, after consulting so many people, because I had a tick come back loaded. It was so loaded with so many nasty things that everybody agreed. Even one of them were like, just take it, because it was so like it had Rocky Mountain spotted fever. I had a couple markers for that. And people are like, don't screw around with that. So there is a time and a place, but at the same time, I am totally with you as testing them, because my daughter also got a tick attached to her, and it was attached to her for, again, I want to talk about this myth of the 24-hour thing, but hers was on her for a couple of days, because I remember her saying to me, she's like, she was rubbing her head and she's like, Mom, I have I was like, what are you doing? She's like, oh, I have a bump back here. And I looked and she had like one of the bigger ticks and it was fully engorged. And I was like, how long has that been here? And she's like, oh, a couple days. And I was like, oh boy. So I sent hers in before just rushing to get her on an antibiotic, right? Hers came back clean, had nothing. And I want to ask you that, Heather. So the company that you recommend, do they test for a lot of the co-infections as well, besides just Lyme?
Correct.
Okay. That's one thing. So we'll put the links in there. I've done tickcheck.com, but I'll get will you say the one you recommend again?
Tickology.
Tickology. Okay. We'll put those below links as well. Because I think that is very, very, very important as well. And I am a huge fan of herbals. Do you have some right offhand that you recommend, or is that something you feel is more of like an individual thing that you would
You know, I
recommend?
love Dr. Rawls's protocol. I love Nutrimedics has got an awesome protocol. Cowden has an awesome protocol. So there's some really great, Lyme specific herbal protocols out on the market. I mean, even Cellcore. So at the end
Mhm.
of their comprehensive protocol, they've got some nice herbs that they use as well. So I'll usually, depending on what else I'm dealing with a person, but those are usually like the top kind of 3 companies that I work with as far as, protocols go and herbals.
Awesome. I love it. Yeah, such good stuff there. Okay, let's go back to the 24-hour myth. We have to talk about this because I can't tell you if you do a search online about ticks, it always says constantly, well, if it's for unless it has to be at least 24 hours for any risk of any bacteria or junk, let's call it junk, it's not always bacteria, to pass through, to get into your body. So what do you say to that?
I think it's total BS. And if you use a
Yeah.
little common sense when it comes to this, like it is a blood-borne pathogen. So how is it different than anything else that is transmitted through blood insects, right? So people are like, oh, for the longest time, oh, it's not sexually transmitted. And oh, you can only get it from ticks. Bullshit. Anything, mosquitoes, ticks, bed bugs, fleas, right? Anything that bites you that can transmit disease can carry Lyme disease, sexually transmitted, congenital, so passing it from mother to child. Like you got to treat it just like a bloodborne disease, like any other bloodborne disease. And I know the whole that it needs to be attached for 24 hours is just another one of those stupid myths that if you think about it, I mean, the minute they start to latch on and do their thing. I mean, I think it's ridiculous, but yeah. Nope, just a little bit of common sense. So no, I don't.
Yeah.
All that's all gone. So I would, like I said, if you can keep a hold of the tick and get it sent in, that's going to be your first bet as far as finding out what you've actually got. Um,
Mhm.
but like I said, if you're nervous while you're waiting, for the results to come back, there's, like I said, some great herbals that you can start. Because even if it doesn't have a lot of those things, it still could carry other weird little bacteria. It could also, start an inflammatory reaction just from the bite itself type of thing. So there's things you can do to kind of soothe that without having your immune system going crazy. But no, I think it needs to be attached for a certain period of time and it can only come from ticks and all that. I think it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, Heather, thank you for clarifying that because I always call BS to that too. I'm like, that's a joke.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm like,
so
come on, folks.
yeah, why 24 hours? I don't know who made that crap up,
I know,
but
right?
anyway, it's BS, you guys. So, um, and I know you listed off a bunch that you dealt with, but can you maybe list off some quote diagnoses that people can tend to get? And I know it may not always be Lyme may not always be root cause. And when we say Lyme too, I think we need to clarify there's the Lyme bacteria, but then there's co-infections and co-infections. I don't know if you want to list some of them, if they're some of them are big names, but there can be co-infections that people can get that can actually be worse than the Lyme, quote, Lyme
Oh,
bacteria
absolutely. God,
itself.
the symptoms that I got from Bartonella alone were 10 times worse than the Lyme disease. Bartonella, I had true Lyme rage, which comes from Bartonella, the sweating at night, which kind of is a relationship to malaria. Like it was that, yeah, Bart was way worse, I think, than dealing with the actual Lyme. But yeah, so it can come, they call it nature's dirty needle, right? So as it's feeding on all the different things out there in the forest, including you, it's collecting as it goes. And then once it hits you, it's just like this concoction of nastiness. Um, and oh man, I lost that thread. Squirrel.
That's
Um,
okay.
yeah, the co-infections and then the diagnoses. Yeah, like geez, I was diagnosed with bipolar, um, chronic fatigue, uh, fibromyalgia. I mean, gosh, you name it. They call it the great imitator because it
Yeah.
it does imitate and look like all kinds of other diseases out there. MS, huge part of MS people are actually misdiagnosed Lyme disease, Alzheimer's. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's pretty crazy, and it can be tough. Some of the more common symptoms, because it is a great mimicker, right? So it can be hard to say that this is like the list for folks, but one of the big telltale signs is migrating pain, right? So if there's only, gosh, what did I hear? Like 6%, or no, there's only like six actually other diseases out there that has migrating pain. And so it's so that one is very true to Lyme. And so if you've got someone that says, I've got pain in my right shoulder one day and then in my left knee and then my right hip, that's a pretty great indicator that you've got Lyme. But I mean, it can do anything else from, brain inflammation, like I said, the cognitive impairment, the chronic pain, the chronic fatigue. I had nerve twitch. People talk about burning sensation on the inside, or a tingling, a vibrating sensation on the inside. Like all the things that it can do is truly phenomenal. And it always cracks me up in some of the Lyme groups. People are always asking, could this be Lyme? And my answer is always the same. I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah.
It could always be Lyme. Like, yeah. So from stomach issues, for me, it really affected my stomach and my brain. So I had a lot of the depression, anxiety, suicidal ideations, a lot of brain fog, a lot of brain inflammation. I mean, shoot, after I had my kid, I was 25 years old and I seriously thought I was going towards dementia. Like I couldn't believe how much my brain was starting to disappear at a very early age and not being able to remember things. And now I don't have that problem, but it was a combination. It's usually never one thing. Right. That's what I'm always trying to teach too with folks is because they get caught up on treatment because it's Lyme disease. No, what made you susceptible to the Lyme disease to begin with? Was it funky, mutations in your genetics? Was it a fast-paced lifestyle and eating like crap? Was it high stress? There's other things to consider that made you more susceptible to getting the Lyme and the co-infections, and all that stuff needs to be, the trauma, the stuff in your nervous system, all that stuff needs to be taken into account when you're looking at the whole picture when it comes to like working with someone with Lyme.
I'm glad you mentioned nervous system because I know with mold, because mold was a massive thing for me that I had to retrain my brain, retrain my nervous system. I didn't realize how in fight or flight my body was until I started really diving in and working on it. And it's crazy now because now I can feel when I am in fight or flight, and then I can feel when I'm out of fight or flight. So, anyone listening, if you don't know if you're in fight or flight or out of fight or flight, you are likely in fight or flight, and you don't actually know what it feels like to be out of fight or flight. That's just my personal experience. That's how I would explain it to someone. So nervous system is huge. And I think when it comes to healing and a healing from things like mold and Lyme and stuff like that, like you can do all the things too, but we have to address that calming the nervous system. Heather, something else I wanted you to just speak to a little bit is because I know you also dealt with mold and like heavy metals and how the bacteria and also and speak to this too. So I have like oodles of questions for you, but how Lyme and Lyme co-infection bacteria can actually act a little more parasitic and not just bacterial. So, which I think is where in the medical world, when they go antibiotics, 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 we miss it for a couple of reasons because they're just throwing antibiotics at it, which is maybe helping it, but it's also knocking down your body. But we're not addressing what's kind of continuing to feed all that bacteria, like the mold and the heavy metals. Can you kind of talk about how all of that like is like its own almost like ecosystem in the body? Is that how you would explain it?
I mean, maybe I feel like you're getting into the weeds a little bit here, but
okay. We can simplify it. We don't have to go too deep.
Yeah. So it's what we were saying before, that Lyme usually doesn't come by itself, right? It's never typically just Lyme disease with somebody. And that's why you got to look at the lifestyle, the detox pathways, the DNA stuff, mutations, and then other things like heavy metals, other parasites, candida, right? Because if we've got a candida issue, it's usually there because we have a heavy metal issue, because it's there trying to protect us from the heavy metals. Same thing with other parasites. And it is. And I've found that if you treat this out of order, right, it can cost a lot more money and take a lot longer. So many people, I actually have a client that I'm working with now, big time zeroed in on the candida. I've got a candida problem. Yes, you do. And what are we going to do about it? We're going to get there in the proper step, but we're taking, candida is just a symptom. It's not the problem, right? And so we got to address it in the right order, because like for me, I mean, I remember back in the day when it was candida cleanses were all the everything, and you starve yourself from sugar, right? And you do this heavy protocol, unbeknownst to me that I had other overgrowth of bacteria and parasites. And the parasite poo and the bacteria poo were still feeding the candida, even though I was starving myself of sugar, like even healthy, natural, fruit from, fruit sugar, so if you do things out of order, like I said, it can take a little longer and cost a little bit more money to treat. But yes, you really do need to look at the whole picture, because it's never just Lyme. There's always more to it. And that's why a lot of times folks with the antibiotics don't work, because if you're just focused on, that's just one piece of the whole problem. And if that's all, you can't just focus on the one piece. Like I said, that's the biggest thing. I'm out there screaming. And it's so funny because people will still hear me speak, and then words go, well, what did you do to treat? And my head just wants to explode. I'm like, did you not hear what I said? Like, you can't focus on treatment. It's a whole process, and it takes months. It can take years. Dr. Rawls, who's huge in the Lyme world, he's very candid with, it took him 3 to 4 years to heal. Other people that I talk to, it's 1 to 2 years. You typically didn't get this way overnight, and it takes a minute, right, to reverse the things, but putting one foot in front of the other and starting to peel back those different layers and addressing all of it. That's why I like certain things like Cell Core and other products like that, because they have it, they address all those big bads in the proper order. So I think I got your question.
Yeah. No, it is so important. There is an order to doing things. And I find so many people who, especially if they've been dealing with Lyme for a long time, their body is really knocked down. And we have to, and they're to a place where like they're just so exhausted and tired of dealing with their health that they want it fixed yesterday. And I'm like, get that. But we have to start where we're at, and then we have to start, like you said, in this order, and slowly work with your body, and so we can boost it up and make it stronger. But I think the biggest thing I guess I want to make is awareness for people, because I feel like I hear so many stories of people that they're kind of bark up the wrong tree of what's going on with their symptoms or a child's symptoms or things like that. So if there's anything weird going on, I think it can be really important to test. So let's talk about testing. Testing for Lyme is not easy. So Heather.
No. So it's funny because a lot of the testing that's out there is testing for an immune response. And if you've had it for decades, couple years even, like, it's very stealthy about shutting down your immune system or even hiding within your own immune system. So then those tests aren't picking it up. So the traditional like Western blot and ELISA test, it's like 50% inaccurate. Like, that's so ridiculous. I use Vibrant Wellness. They do 2 different types of testing, which I find it to be a little bit more on the accurate side. I also mix it with like the Cell Core's free intake form. It's a 400 and some question intake form. Like, it's legit. I mix that with the Horowitz intake form, and between those two, it usually gives me a really great picture of what we're dealing with, because a lot of times I had one client who actually, it wasn't Lyme, and she had been chasing and thought it was Lyme for forever. And once I read these intakes, I was like, you've got more of a mold issue, right?
Mhm.
So um, people think because I'm the Lyme boss that sometimes everything that I see is now Lyme, which actually like 80% of it is. But that's why I like starting with these intake forms, because maybe it's more of a mercury issue, right? Like my husband's got horrible tinnitus, and that can be a mold and other and heavy metal thing, but I'm finding out he's got mercury in his mouth that we need to work on. So working with somebody who knows how to kind of tease that stuff out, because I found that most people, if they've only got this much money to work with, I don't want to take $1,500 of that to one test that could be inaccurate, right?
Mhm.
So a lot of times I'll just, take, medical background plus the intake forms and then go from there. I personally got diagnosed with a live blood analysis, which is kind of current controversial and out there. If you can find a person in your area who does it, like it's really awesome. You go in and you have one little prick of your blood done. They put it on a slide and throw it up on a screen, and they can show you. They're like, oh, look, there's your candida. And oh, look, this is where your electrolytes should be. And oh, look, there's your little, I saw the spiral shaped bacteria, floating along.
Wow.
It was my Lyme disease. And so I walked in, it was a $75 test. And by the time I walked out, I knew I had Lyme. I wanted to become a live blood analysis person for a long time. I still kind of do, but I don't have an in-person practice. If I had an in-person practice, I probably would go back and have that done, because it's just it's phenomenal what you can see in that one little prick of blood. Like it's amazing the information you get.
That is
Have
incredible.
you ever seen one or had
I
one done?
haven't. No. I've done the Vibrant America, which is, and then the intake forms. I am with you on intake forms. And I think that's like, I know you and I are both fans of testing, absolutely, but I'm the same as you are, as it's like, there's a point at which like we need to spend that money on starting to heal, and not just on oodles and oodles of tests. Especially once we start getting some information. But it's amazing. I have found Lyme in people by just having them do the intake forms, and I'm like, oh, here we go. This gives us a different direction that I wasn't originally expecting us to go.
It's so many functional practitioners. They're starting to wake up to, most of them are like, I don't want to deal with Lyme or mold. And I'm like, I'm sorry, if you're working with chronically sick people, like you're going to want to learn how to go down this rabbit hole, because
Yeah.
pretty soon there's going to be no getting around it. Like it is becoming an epidemic. I mean, they say that over 50% of buildings have been water damaged. There's a certain percent of the population has genetic mutations that make us more susceptible to being, sick with mold, exposure to mold, and then the Lyme. And then with Lyme disease spreading and becoming an epidemic on its own, like there's pretty soon everyone's going to have to be Lyme literate and mold literate if they want to
Yeah.
truly clients. Otherwise, they're just
It's
going to be throwing band-aids on symptoms.
right. And you can't say, oh, I don't want to work with people with mold and Lyme, because you don't know a lot of times until you get digging, and then you start to realize, whoa, this is why this person doesn't feel good. This is why they've been sick for so long, or
Right.
whatever it is. Um, do you work with kids at all? Have you
I
started working with kids?
I don't. I wanted to in the beginning, and sometimes I find that it's hard enough to get one person on a protocol and on doing something, and then to get three people, which is usually the mother, the father, and then the kid, right, all on the same page, was a little bit more than patience than what
Mhm.
God gave me.
Yeah, I can see
I
that. Yeah.
I had one woman who had sent me to their teenager who had been extremely suicidal and in like a very big psychiatric lockup for like 6 months. Turns out he was celiac. Turns out he had massive, I did the Zoomers on him, so all kinds of issues with dairy, corn, wheat. And, when I asked her, well, what does he eat? Oh, he eats like crap. He eats pizza and he eats this and he eats that. And I'm like, you're going to have to learn how to cook for him. And she goes, I don't think I can do that. And this was his mother, and as a
Yeah.
mother, like if I would have gotten those answers from my kid younger, like it blew my mind and broke my heart to a whole nother level that I didn't even know existed. So I Yeah, I don't work with kids because I struggle with getting the parents on board and the kids on board. And so God bless those people who do work with kids. I was told long, long time ago by someone looking into my chart that I am supposed to be working with kids. And so, famous last words, it's usually that place where you're like, no, I'm not going to go there.
Maybe
Which,
eventually,
where's
maybe
you're supposed to go,
eventually.
but yeah, but not right now. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet.
Yeah, yeah. I do work with some kids because I work with so many moms that inevitably it seems like, not all of them, but some of them, they'll have a child that we started talking in conversation. And I'm like, oh, maybe we need to, and not necessarily it's Lyme or mold, it can be other digestive things, right? Oh my gosh, it's just fixing. Like we kind of started this conversation, or like you started this conversation, is it's all about that terrain, getting, when your digestive system is functioning better, whether it means you've got to cut out gluten or dairy or whatever it is to help your body start to function better, then you are stronger to battle anything that's, then comes your way. So it can be done. Heather, may just be finding the right people, the right kids, the right families in time.
Right. Yeah. I'll put that out there when the time comes. But right, I said right now,
Okay.
I'm just
Okay.
not there yet.
That's okay. Um, okay, so we've talked about testing and then we've talked a little bit about treating. And again, I know it's such an individual, like it really is so individual. But if you could say, like, where do you like to kind of start people if you know they're possibly dealing with Lyme? Like, what's kind of one of the first thing we need to educate people on about, like, from a healing perspective?
The traditional FDN way, right? The dress for success model: diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, supplementation. So I have an online educational portal and I start breaking these things down for people because I don't know how many times, oh, I eat healthy, I eat clean. And then when I have them start doing their tracker, my head explodes. I'm like, no, that's not clean or healthy at all. But we've been brainwashed, right, into this is a part of a healthy breakfast. Bullshit. That's diabetes in the making, is what that was, right? When they're talking about cereal and juice with a piece of fruit and So, yeah, I start with the diet, like, because you can't supplement your way out of a bad diet. You can't exercise your way out of a bad diet. So we really try to get that dialed in. And that can usually be the low-hanging fruit to actually get people start working within like 2 to 3 weeks, right? When we get food sensitivities back and we get the inflammation, the other inflammatory foods out of the diet, it's amazing how quickly people can start to feel just even a little bit better before we start digging deeper and digging deeper. And then I've also added, the brain retraining stuff, somatic experiencing work, breath work, tapping. I'm learning emotion code right now, which has been ridiculous at helping to clear like ancestral crap as well as emotional crap hidden in the body now. And then I've got the bioenergetic stuff that I use to help balance a person, because a lot of people I work with are so ridiculously sensitive that
Yeah.
can't even do a supplement without having a reaction. And so I start with these infoceuticals and this bioenergetic work to kind of help. They talk about root cause, but sometimes the root cause is our bioenergetic field having
Yeah.
issues being out. And if you can address that stuff, then a lot of times the stuff that you do on the physical has a better chance of working properly, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Well, I know all about bioenergetics. I love it. I do it with my clients and done it with my family and myself. And I've seen some amazing, amazing things with what the frequencies do for the body. So it's incredible. I love it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I mean, they come out with new stuff all the time. Like, have you heard of Free Medica?
Mm-mm, no.
This is a little watch device that you wear that's got like a Lyme protocol, and
The inner frequencies.
yeah, and it goes through, so light, right? Red light. The frequencies are going through the red light and put into the body, and it's just something as easy as something that you wear, and it's got stuff for like energy and sleep and anxiety. Like, some of the stuff that's coming out, the technology that's coming out is so ridiculously cool. And I love my toys. I love my tech. I really do. Like right now, I've got this one on my lap. I have this one on my wrist. Like, I
Yeah,
love it.
it is. I love the frequencies. It's amazing. And yeah, there's so much there. There's so much to be learned. And I think with all that said too, is everyone listening is like being open to different modalities for healing. Because if we think about it, I talk about energies a lot. I talk about fascia a lot. We hold so much. And I know you mentioned like trauma and junk. We hold that in our tissue. And that's why I always prompt my ladies when we start moving your body, we start opening up stuff, especially in the pelvic region. Like you may just feel like you need to cry or we need to express our feelings in a safe way because that stuff's starting to move out of our body. And when we start to really recognize the frequencies, and that's where breath work is so powerful. Like even just it's free. We have it within ourselves. So if you're feeling like money is an issue, I don't have money to do anything. Well, you can start with breath work and just tuning into your body, like the simplest little things can really start to shift your nervous system and make you start to feel a little bit better. I know sometimes it's easier said than done, but
We have forgotten how to be humans, right? We've got all this artificial light. We stay up till 2, we party, we burn the candle at both ends. We're sitting at a desk all day, we're eating processed food, like all of it. None of it was conducive for a healthy lifestyle. And so that's why that some of these free, right, easier, they seem too easy to actually be potent, but no, like
right.
get your 20-minute walk in outside during the day, get your bare feet on the ground. Get your eyes on the first morning sunlight to help set your circadian rhythm. The breath work, like mitochondrial, there's all the talk about mitochondrial and ATP these days. One of the things that they need to make ATP is oxygen. And so many people have become like this shallow chest breathers. And so we're not actually getting enough oxygen in our body to make the energy that we need. And so sometimes just even being taught how to breathe properly, which for the longest time, I was that sarcastic asshole that was like, what are you talking about breath work? That's what I do every day. If it worked, then why am I not feeling better? No, I was one of these shallow chest breathers, right? And I would hold my breath a lot. Like it was crazy how much I'm like finding myself doing it now because I'm getting a little stressed out. But it's like that first instinct is to just hold your breath. And it's like, no, you need to, oh, there, now I got dizzy. So yeah, I'm like, ooh, cue the issues with oxygen. So yeah, it's amazing that once a lot of times you put some of these simple things in play, how big changes can happen.
Absolutely. I know we can sometimes think, even though you feel like, oh my gosh, maybe you've got this big hurdle you feel like you've got to go over with your health, that you got to do these, we got to check kind of the boxes on some of these simple healthy lifestyle things, which we talk about all the time on the podcast. We talk about breathing. I have episodes that are just dedicated to breathing. So if you want to learn how to breathe better, go listen to one of those episodes. So Heather, thank you so much. Is there any last things you want to add that we haven't talked about that you really want to feel like you want to share with everyone listening?
Man, I think we covered the gamut there. I don't think that I don't think there's anything else there. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Heather, will you share with everyone where they can reach out to you, learn more about everything that you're doing, and if they have any questions, where they can find you?
Absolutely. You can find me at thelymeboss.com. And while you're there, don't forget to download my free cooking series, Real Cooking for Real Life, because that's like one of the biggest complaints I get from people was, I don't have time to cook, or I don't even know where to begin, right, to cook. And so here I teach you how to use like these 3 kitchen tools to make these delicious, yummy, easy, fast meals. But I'm also teaching you how to avoid toxins in the kitchen and why you want to do organic, grass-fed, pasture-raised animals over confinement animals. Like it really is more than just a cooking tutorial, but it's completely free. I think there's like 7 videos now, and I'm constantly adding to it. I know pretty soon I need to add the pork egg roll bowl recipe that I just made that came out ridiculously delicious, that a lot of people are like, you need to make a video. So yeah, go get your free video series.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Heather.
Absolutely.